This is the Map Scout Challenge brought to you by OnX, where we examine the map, assess features like terrain, habitat, and access, then go out and rip it apart in person.
And right now we're going to show you the results, no holds barred, so that next time you go to public land, you have the confidence to scout, hunt, and kill whatever you're after.
Seriously just happened.
What's up, y'all? This is the Map Scout Challenge. We are headed to a piece of Corps of Engineers Lake. That doesn't make any sense. What's up, y'all? This is the Map Scout Challenge. Today we are headed to Lake Whitney. It's a piece of Corps of Engineers land, and we know that there are deer, hogs, and turkeys all on this property. So I am pumped to go out here and scout this out.
We were sent this place on the Nolan River. It's kind of a deep creeky spot right there, right? And then
access is on that, you said on the north side, right?
Yeah, the north side of the highway, like the northwest side. And
there's gonna be some elevation in here probably.
There's probably gonna be bluffs along the river.
Yeah.
I think we gotta watch out for that.
Limestone,
yeah.
So kind of soft, geologically speaking, I guess. So there's gonna be some cut banks and that kind of thing.
That's the thing right there where that pinches down. Could get real tough to get around because you're wanting to get over here to this wheat field.
Yeah.
And look at this, which is probably a really good idea. There's probably some deer using it, but
there's also,
we'll see if we can get there or not.
A pinch right on the edge of that wheat field between the river that, you know, you likely would see some deer traveling in.
Yeah. I'm also interested. I'm interested to see how the actual property lines end up working out over here, because who knows where the fences are? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like, there's like a lake halfway split right there.
Yeah.
So who knows what that's going to actually be like when you get there.
If you zoom in on that wheat field, there's some green in it. Parts of it look pretty rough.
Who knows?
It's probably pretty rocky soil.
Probably.
So that's about, looks like we had a...
Looking like a mile to the other side of it, probably.
Yeah.
Come on.
Do a...
There's some trails around it on the other side, and one trail leading directly into it right there on that side.
On the west side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So probably some deer in there.
It's going to be about 8/10 of a mile.
There could be hogs and stuff too, but there's a good flat right there just to the west of that wheat field. Like, that's definitely...
Red flat.
Yeah.
About 8/10 of a mile to this side, so pretty good haul.
Yeah.
There's a lot of acreage here, man, on this property.
Yeah, which is weird because it's all long and stretched out, but it's still a lot.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So there's that one. We're definitely fixing to go hit that. And since we're here, I don't really want to go to the south end of the lake very much. It's kind of just, I don't know, kind of flat looking.
Flat,
yeah. But where is it? Somewhere right in here. You're kind of up in the higher reaches of the lake, and it's not very far from us. You know, you can see right there where we are. But that's over on the Brazos, and we can pick and choose kind of this side or whatever kind of once we get over there. But that's probably another place that we could go hit to just check out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, see if we want to hit two spots, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll hit at least two. We might be able to hit another, but let's get up in here, see how much time it leaves us, and see if there's any deer or hog sign up in there.
Cool.
I think what we're about to run into is it's like that point where ecoregions meet. Like right now we're cedary, hilly, and then we're gonna drop down into the bottoms, and it's gonna be like that hackberry kind of nasty East Texas-y looking stuff still. It's kind of weird, which might be really good for animals because you got a lot of edges and you're gonna have a lot of different types of habitat, a lot of food, a lot of forage, all that kind of stuff. But I'm interested to see what the deer prefer and how they're going to be using it, you know, because this thick cedar stuff like here, yeah, it's good bedding, I guess, or whatever, but sometimes it just gets too thick and they don't like it at all. So I guess it's going to be kind of one of our main challenges whenever we get down in this spot.
Yeah, and I've been here before, and I would have to agree the cedar stuff is just like too thick sometimes, and there's really not a whole lot of stuff that can grow in this thick cedar and rock country. So like there's not going to be a whole lot for them to eat in the cedar areas, and they tend to be up on ridges and hills too in this area, which I think, you know, most people know a deer is going to use a creek bottom a lot. So not that they wouldn't be up there, but I think we're going to definitely try to spend more time around the creeks, the draws, that kind of thing. I'm going to put some boots on and go.
We see a hog, you're chasing him down and catching him, pulling a hamstring. I found the evidence of a turkey. Look at this. Toe pad, double toe pad.
There's some elevation here. Oh yeah, that's a big old hill.
It's actually some really cool looking habitat down in here. It's kind of thick with green briar stuff, but it's at least open enough for deer and stuff to use it. So a lot of green already, man. It's just January and it's like green up's already happening.
I think we can walk. If we can get on that bottom ledge, we can walk it. That's cool. There's a trail right up there. I don't know if it's critters or dudes. Just a few Okay, our first little dilemma is this is a pretty good fence. It doesn't correspond with the boundary marker that's on the Onyx map. So you got to make sure and check whenever you run up on something like this, make sure that all the maps line up and that you actually aren't getting on to private property, because there's nothing that we would hate worse in Texas than to trespass on somebody's place and make it to where there's less public access than there already is. So we do believe this is going to be okay to cross, but make sure you do that because this is a pretty good looking fence. We don't have a ton of public up in here, but hopefully it's just enough to be able to, you know, get some deer crossing back and forth between these hills or something.
What do you find there?
We have found a genuine turkey feather. Ovis ovis. I don't think that's right. I don't really know, but
I think it's Orvis.
Orvis. That's what I wish I had right now. Found this turkey feather, and there's also a trail that kind of goes right up through here. We're kind of in one of those places we call deer movement areas, where we still got a little bit of like that Texas vibe where there's not great trails, but it just looks like a place that deer could be using. It does dead end into the river down here, so I don't know how much, you know, through traffic you're going to get, but it's definitely kind of like a loafing area or whatever, and apparently could possibly be a turkey roost too. I mean, I could see this hill isn't too big or too nasty. You could have some bedding up there on the side of that hill. Deer moving down and eating this clovery type stuff or just working their way through here, but I don't see, you know, rut sign or anything much.
So walking through here, it's kind of a small creek, and with the elevation, it kind of boxes everything in pretty tight. Not to mention, there's a ton of greenbrier and just, well, most of it greenbrier, but it's super thick. And I think with the elevation, the boxiness, the tight quarters of this, I mean, we've got a trail here. It's got maybe like 1 or 2 old tracks on it. Yeah, I think they definitely could come through here, but I almost feel like it's just not the greatest spot with a big river right there. It's definitely, you know, a blockade for most parts of the year probably. So this general area, I'm not sure if it's going to work out right in here. So we may move on down the river and try to find a little something different where there's more area for them to transition through and feel more ease of travel and that kind of thing.
maybe this year. Hard to say if that's a deer or a hog. Right there at least. There might be better evidence. A rub. And it's a good 16 inches tall, so you can figure that deer is going to be somewhere between
80 and 100 pounds.
Yeah, somewhere between 80 and 100 pounds. But it's a pretty good rub, though. I mean, decent sized tree, and he's put some decent marks into it. You know, we're not out here trying to kill Boone and Crockett bucks. It's just, you know, something cool on public would be awesome, you know. So I think that's a good sign, man. And we're up here. I got a stick in my eyeball, and we're on a, you know, a sort of south-facing cedary ridge. I mean, I could definitely see this being like a bedding spot up underneath some of these cedars. It's always cool, you know. There's always moisture in this dirt. So especially our early season, it could be definitely a place that bucks are spending some time.
Gonna be a hog bed right there.
There's a hog bed. That's a good rub, though. You know?
Yeah.
Good size cedar tree, at least.
How do you hunt it?
Oh yeah, talk about a hard place to get to.
We've been kind of walking along the top of this ridge once we got up here because there's a natural travel. It's not natural, it's human made. We're running to the edge of the private and public boundary here, so there's no fence line, so the private guy has been coming in here and mowing a strip or two down the top of this ridge. It probably helps the deer movement out. There's definitely some trails right here. Haven't seen any great tracks really, but there's good ryegrass on the ground and that kind of thing, so I'm sure they're feeding in here a little bit and they're moving through here. Something to keep in mind. You also have lanes, shooting lanes, if you want to hang on one of these cedars and have a ton of cover and good shooting lanes. But we're probably not going to hang a camera here, and I don't know if I would actually come all the way over here to hunt where I'm at, but if you live close, it might be worth a try.
Okay, so there's pretty much a definite pattern here. Who knows how effective it would be, but there are definitely deer bedding on the north side benches of this finger that juts out here towards the river, and they're coming up and loafing and feeding at night in this ridge top that is privately owned for the most part. There's a couple little pockets right here on this backside that is officially public land that's still been dozed off with a bulldozer. I don't know if you don't know that reference. And there's also a feeder and a stand out there. So those deer are bedding out there, and then they are hitting this opening probably right at dark, going out there to eat that feeder. So technically it could be one of those situations where on the public land could be where you can actually kill the deer in the daylight. Getting to them is going to be the much more difficult thing. It's going to be real tricky with the wind and whatnot. So I don't know if this is something I would travel here to do specifically, but there are a decent amount of deer here. We've seen a decent amount of rubs and stuff. So I mean, there's deer around. Just don't know if it's the best spot yet. Gosh, there's that fence right there, but just on the other side of that is that long lake that's on that creek. And if you look, there's a good sized drop off right here, but there's not one, and it's like a bottom where that ag field is right there.
Right. I feel like the thing is moving on this side of this. Are you talking about deer moving on this side of this, or
I'm talking about deer coming off of this?
Oh yeah.
And then moving this way, like maybe fall on the ridge. Right here is going to be the easiest.
Basically going west here.
Yes. Yeah. I'm gonna drop off this thick hill we just walked through, which there was deer sign in there, on the trails and stuff. And
I mean, it's definite. There's a definite pinch along the river.
The creek and the river right there.
And like I feel like there may be deer on the backside there too. I don't know. It depends on how bluffy that is.
It looks like it's not bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
So we're up there on that big cedar hill, and we got to noticing that there'd be a pinch up against this lake, and then we walked down, and there's a giant bluff. So literally the only way deer can get through here is to go across the lake dam, and that's exactly what's going on. There's some really good trails coming to this lake dam. What's strange is that you can't really get to this public piece except for having to go through that bottom right there and come up here to the dam, because this is just the one little sliver of public right here. So kind of a tricky place to get to, but I think that's what you need to do anyways to be able to access it to hunt these deer, because the only other way would be to go through the top of the hill, which you really can't do anyways because of the private land. So it's definitely a really good pinch. If you'd see a deer every day, I don't know, but it's a pinch.
Why don't we just go ahead and secure a boat for this trip?
This is a pretty cool spot. I mean, look at this. There's an awesome river. There's ducks both directions that we should be hunting right now. And we've seen really good hog sign, some pretty good deer sign, and turkey tracks and turkey feather. I know there'd be some squirrel nests in that tree right there. Like, this is an awesome place to come if you want to go enjoy the outdoors and shoot something. I think that we could kill some deer here. I do. Might be tough, might be hard to learn, but we saw some stuff today that definitely makes me think that there's some movement patterns to what these deer are doing. So I think this is a pretty good spot. And if you're all around outdoorsman, I mean, like, dude, right now I can see 12 ducks. More to swim around the bend, so we are shotgunless. But it's a really, really awesome place, a beautiful place, and a place I'd like to spend some more time. Now, what I think we're fixing to do is that we're gonna walk out of here, and if it doesn't take too long, we're gonna go hit another spot that I found on the map that I kind of like. It's gonna be a little bit more like river bottom, not as much of the ridges like we worked today, but it seems like to me, like right now I'm standing on a deer trail, that the deer are gravitating towards the river, which is something you find no matter where you're at in the country. If you're like, I don't know where to go hunt in Nebraska, go to a river. I don't know where to go hunt in Iowa, go to the river. I don't know where to go hunt in Minnesota, find a river. You'll find some deer. So that's what we're gonna do right now. We're gonna walk out of here, eat some lunch because I'm starving, and then go try to find some deer. I thought I was talking about figurative turkeys here, but I'm talking about literal turkeys. This trail up against this bluff has got turkey tracks all up and down it. It's crazy. And people tracks. That means we can get home. We don't get bluffed out. I feel like most of the time I try to use roots there. Dead and they've rotten. A video of Johnny Cash and Hank Williams in a montage, and they're like, this is real country. Actually listen to that on a daily basis. Daily.
Not many.
5%. Okay, we are to that place that we found on the map that we think's gonna be pretty good. We're kind of more in a little bit of a river bottom kind of area here. Got to cross a railroad track, but it is on public according to the map, so we're in good shape there. And on the other side of the tracks, there's going to be a pretty good expanse of CRP looking stuff with maybe some hardwoods in it. Hoping to go in here and find some decent deer sign and be able to assess like what this whole area is going to be like. I feel like it's more remote than that place we were earlier. Maybe not as far of a walk, but it's kind of down a county road a ways and stuff, so I think it's a pretty good spot. I expect to see some deer sign, maybe some turkeys, and maybe some pigs. Either way, it's getting late in the day. I just ate lunch. I'm a little bit tired, so I need to get moving before I get sleepy. The horse trail. That wasn't on the map. There's a scrape right there.
Sure is.
Pretty good size too.
Mm-hmm. Somewhat fresh. There's a track right. Yeah, right there.
Well, that's good to get.
Even We're not far from the road, by the way.
No. I mean, I guess crow flies a quarter mile. You know, it's tough to get here, but I mean, you can still hear the cars. This horse trail's weird.
I wonder if there's easier access down that way.
I wonder that too. Might have to go check it out. This edge is the spot, man. Rub, scrape.
Not a broken looking branch, but we're still using it.
I like it.
We find this a lot in Texas when we hunt. These type of like transition areas between certain habitats. So back in here we've got this like super thick greenbrier stuff. I mean, that's what we walk through basically to get in here, and then it starts to filter out and get thinner and thinner out into this CRP field back here. But you've got ashes and hackberries and some bodark and stuff like that right in here, and you can basically see the line where deer are probably not going to travel because it's not easy to walk through the greenbrier and stuff. So I mean, any big tree along that edge right there allows you to a 20 or 30 yard shot out this way, and essentially you can see the trail we're on right here. If you were hunting in one of these trees back here, you've got a 25 yard shot to this trail, and you can blow your wind that direction over the thick stuff and know that you're probably in a pretty good spot as far as hunting goes. Just thinking about applying that as we're doing this scouting session.
So something about it, I don't know what it is, but I always like corners when you're talking about fields or openings. And this is a perfect corner because it's thick out here with this tall grass, and then it's, Tyler was talking about, like it's kind of feathered here to where it's not like a super hard edge, but you can tell there's a trail going in there to cross this tree line, and then there's this like lazy trail right here where they cut the corner and go down that other tree line over there, down that edge. So anywhere in here, I just feel like it's kind of a concentration point for the deer because they're going to be going crossways, especially, you know, if you're talking about like rut cruisers, right? They're not going to cut across the middle of that pasture, but they will use this corner a lot. Set up in that tree right there about 17 foot up. Liable to have you a shot at 20 yards right here sometime mid-November.
I know. Tiny Tim's.
Speaking of Tiny Tim's,
See, it is a tiny track, dude.
yeah.
Here's something that I've learned about here versus Iowa. In Iowa, deer will be down in here. In Texas, they won't be down in that creek. I never see them down in it, you know? They'll cross it, but they won't use it to cruise. Good rub right there.
This is the very corner of the field right here. If you can kind of tell behind me, it might be kind of blown out, but there are definite trails or tracks coming into this. Both these trails that come down the edges here. I bet you there's a rub in those thin sticks right there.
Bet you if I was gonna make sure and hang a trail camera somewhere, this is where I would hang it.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know if we're gonna hang a trail camera today just because it's been, we're not sure if we're gonna get back here in any suitable time to get into the video. So it's just not on the way to anything we're doing in the next couple months probably. So we're gonna leave it alone this time around.
There's deer here.
For sure. Matters. Yeah, you can shoot deer, no doubt.
There's that rub you were talking about.
Sure is. An old one and a new one. Little one, but it's one.
Got a overcup or a bur oak one right there on the ground, and then there's pecans off of this decent sized pecan tree. So you can see where there's been pigs and probably turkeys scratching around in here after this stuff. I mean, look at this tree right here. This thing should have sharp bark all the way around, and it's just worn down completely on this side. Look at that mud coming off there. Lots of pigs in here. Lots of targets.
Let's see one of these in a while.
Remember that? Did you ever have that when you were a little kid?
Yeah, a little bowling set.
Bowling set. Water City.
I don't get it.
I think people just like tape. And right there, you might get real excited about. But unless they have, like, just different trees have different thicknesses of, I call it a carapace, I don't know if it is or not, but the thing around the outside of it, I think a deer's gonna have a hard time getting to the meat of that acorn.
Especially these size deer.
Perfect.
a lot of hogs. Really early in the day for them to be out there, too.
So, it's a couple weeks later. We've really had some time to think about this hunting property that we went to on Lake Whitney out there. I have a couple takeaways from this property that I want to talk about with Tyler. I think he's got a couple for me as well because I'm cheating on looking at his screen over here. 4 things that jump out to me about this property. Seclusion from pressure is going to be one. North-facing bedding, especially for whitetails, is a big deal. If you were to bring a boat and have boat access, that would be huge. And then private hunting pressure and influence is going to be a big factor when hunting this property. What about you?
I've got 3 things. Elevation is a big key. I think there's going to be a lot of hogs. That would be my number 2 point, which I'll tell you more about that in a second. And I don't think there's going to be as much valuable ag as it looks like on the map. Yeah. So anyway, why don't you tell us the hunting application of your points, and we'll kind of go back and forth talk about that.
Okay, cool. So seclusion from pressure is going to be a big deal. While we were there, we saw like 3 or 4 different groups of people probably. Yeah. None of them were hunting or scouting, I don't think, but fishing, hiking, doing all this stuff. It's a multi-use facility. Actually looked like a really good fishing spot, and I wish that I could capitalize on that a little bit more. Yeah. But people like that are going to definitely walk in up to that half-mile mark, and you're going to have hunters in the fall even that are going to be willing to walk further and do more. So this is going to be one of those places where going in the 3/4+ mile range is going to really help benefit you in the long run in finding deer, hogs, turkeys.
Mm-hmm. For me, elevation was my first point, and we found that in the same spot where we saw a lot of fishermen that there was elevation because it's near the river, and for a couple of other reasons there. We noticed that a lot of the elevation in the bottom half section of this core land, which is near the dam in that area, it's a lot flatter, so it didn't matter quite as much probably, but where we were at, there was quite a bit up and down, and I think that what you're going to see there is that the elevation can significantly affect your access. We noticed in a couple of different areas that we went to that we were like, okay, well, we can even drop off here like 200 feet into this bottom or go around the top. And so, no, that's where you're knowing where you are and where the property boundaries are comes into effect. And then also for hunting purposes, once you get in there, these elevation structures are going to basically influence the animal behavior in the path that they travel, so you can really find some pinch points on this.
Yeah, and to go along with that north-facing bedding point that I had is kind of like an expanded version of what you're talking about. We found that a lot of the places where we found really good deer trails, good rubs, and all that is going to be on that direct north-facing slope of the elevation that he's talking about. It seemed like the deer could either hop up on top and go feed at feeders or ag or whatever might be up there on the private, or they could hop down low, visit the riverbed, go get a drink, eat down there in some of the browse or whatever. But either way, that north-facing bedding was always real thick, real dark, and to be honest, guys, in Texas, it's different than everywhere else. Everywhere else, you're really looking like south-facing bedding sometimes because the deer are trying to get some sun in the cold winter or whatever. Exact opposite here, right? We're talking about days in bow season that are well over 100 degrees. Those shady north-facing slopes are going to be the ticket to find big bucks.
And we found a lot of hogs in those areas as well because they tend to not like hot times as well. They're going to also be around water a lot, and I think there's going to be a lot of hogs here because there's a lot of water and there's a lot of shade with cedar trees around and that kind of thing. So for a hunter, that means more opportunities, more targets, like you hear a lot, but also like a good, February, March before it gets too hot here, like an off-season thing to do. And we actually have a video that we'll link to here of us chasing hogs in February, and it's so much fun. So I think this is going to be a property that you could do that on, and I think just finding areas near the lake that you can essentially, the hogs have the water and the bedding that they need, that shade, and just pushing that stuff out with guys and making sure to use the wind, and basically, they're not just going to dive off into the lake most of the time. So.
Yeah, speaking of diving off in the lake, this place is on a lake, and it's on a lake that has a ton of shoreline. So sometimes you have these big round bodies of water. Well, this one is much more snaky. It's pretty much a river that's flooded, right? That has elevation like we were talking about. So you have a ton of shoreline along the river's edge. So boat access and or waders would be a huge advantage when it comes to hunting this property. Yeah. I mean, there were places where we were walking along the river's edge that I know if I had a set of hip waders, I could have made it across the river and gone to a place that was getting no pressure at that point in time.
Yeah.
Then if you're going to expand that, take your John boat down there with you. I mean, you've opened up like probably thousands of acres that are just too far to walk to feasibly for most guys who are going in and hunting. So I think boat access would be huge in finding unpressured deer, hogs, and specifically turkeys, because it seems like turkeys react more to pressure than any of the other two, where deer are going to find a way and find holes and pockets. Turkeys are just going to move out. So something to think of there in the springtime.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of like, long foot travel, we got like, I think we're almost a mile, somewhere between like 8/10 and a mile in the first spot that we checked out. And once we got back there, we thought, well, we're going to find the Mecca, because there's this planted wheat field right here, and there's a pinch point on this side, and they're for sure going to be coming through right here along this river. And we get there, and it's just junk. I mean, it was just there was no ag benefit value for the deer necessarily. I'm sure there's stuff growing up in there, but it's not any different than what they would browse on normally and naturally right in that area. So I think driving around as well, we saw the same thing.
Yeah.
And I can look on this map and find lots of fields that I'm like, man, that could be wheat, but it's not. I think it's coastal Bermuda that's been planted for cattle grazing and for hay production. So.
Or it's just fallow and was cotton in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to have a hard time finding a real good bed to feed pattern. I think you're going to focus more on some of the other things that KC has mentioned, and elevation obviously for travel restriction and that kind of thing. But the north facing slopes, things like that.
Yeah, so along with that, you're looking at private property, looking at the ag that's on it. And I think you can expand that in general to just the influence of the private hunting and other activities going on private land. That field that you're talking about that was 8/10 of a mile back there was pretty much a hunting spot of somebody's. They might have had like a little food plot, and they definitely had a feeder and 2 stands, I think, on that thing. So you're definitely going to have some pressure there. But sometimes you can use that stuff to your advantage. If that place has got a decent amount of pressure and there's a feeder, it's not real tactical or whatever, but maybe it is. Maybe it's just not so feng shui. But you can hunt animals going to that feeder on private property while you're on public, right?
More effectively than the private landowner can.
Yeah, because he's pressured them. Yeah. Where they won't come to the feeder in the daylight.
And their destination is the feeder, therefore it's going to be last minute for him, whereas you can cut them off earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a little sneaky thing that we like to use, especially in some of this Texas public, because it is a feed state, and like it or not, you want to kill animals, you're going to use what's out there, right?
That's right. So now let's go into a couple of suggested map dots based off the things that we saw while we were there boot scouting. We're going to go into some of the things some of the places that we might look if we were to go back. We just didn't have enough time that day. These are things that, based off of these points that we've made, these are places that we might try to check out. We might hang a camera and that kind of thing. So we'll go into that now.
After looking at the map and after getting on the ground there and examining the property, there are other places on this map that we can look at and decide, hey, I bet you I bet you sight unseen that's going to be a productive place to go and hunt, at least spend a morning or an afternoon, right? And I think we each have 3 of these places picked out on this map, and we're going to show you kind of the reasoning behind each of those places. So Tyler, what's your first place?
Okay, well, I'll go to this first place right here, kind of on the west side of the lake, about midway up. And we tried to stay on the upper end just because of some of the points that we mentioned earlier. It's just kind of flat and featureless sometimes on the lower end of this lake. But I did try to pick a spot down there.
Let me throw a caveat in here right quick too. We're looking at the government land layer on OnX. Now, this place does have compartments on it. So you need to make sure and line this up with the WMA or the Corps of Engineers or whoever with their hunting restrictions, okay? This is just what is government land. So we actually haven't gone in and backlogged and checked to make sure all these are actually huntable properties, but they are government properties, and it's at least worth looking at to see if it's a place that you would like to hunt.
Yeah. So, okay, we're looking at this spot right here, and you can see that it's got this like core section that goes all the way down this draw right here, this creek. It says Steel Creek, I guess is what it is. So from Farm Road 56 or whatever that is right there, you can hop off and go, and this is a place that a lot of people will probably just bypass because it's kind of like an all or nothing kind of place. So my thoughts are here, you've got a power line and you've got this creek system that runs through, and it's actually a big chunk of timber if you look around it compared to some of these fields, which are going to be Bermuda fields, which, you know, in this area, deer are going to gravitate towards those fields at night. So you can, it's not necessarily a feeding thing as much as it is kind of like a, what, gregarious is the word, I guess, gregarious kind of thing.
Like to hang out and chill.
Yeah, so they like to hang out with other deer and that kind of thing. So there will be some food and stuff for them to browse and that kind of thing. But my point is, this creek system is a creek system, which we know that deer are going to hang out there, right? And then also, I think that you might be able to find a place where there might be some turkeys roosting upon this creek right here, with as much timber as there is in this particular area, and as isolated as it is. And once you get back there along this creek system, it kind of opens up and gives you some options. So it might be a place that's worth boot scouting at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. And there just might even be a turkey in there too. You might get your trifecta.
That's what I'm hoping.
Okay, so I'm going to go one spot that's pretty close to one of the places that we have already map scouted. I'm sorry, that we've already boot scouted. So we actually went in and boot scouted this whole area right here along the Nolan River. And I think that if you were to bring in a boat and put it in right here, there's a lot of opportunity on places to go. And I just picked one of them because I really like the north-facing slope of this place right here, okay? So if you go down right here, it's very far from any entrance point, all right? You could possibly swim there if you want to put your bow on your back and swim across the Nolan River, but you're pretty much going to need a boat to get there. But there's a ton of terrain, topography, whatever you want to call it here, and also a good bit of flat bottomland down here too. So deer can really get both facets of the habitat that's offered to them here. There's a really good tree line here, and then here's what I really like. This north-facing slope, this north-facing timber right here, but still a decent amount of flat timber right here for them to still loaf around in and traverse through and be able to cover some different parts of the country. So I like the way this spot looks and sets up as far as north-facing timber goes, especially since there is some public up on top, whereas a lot of the places around the lake, like you'll see here, most of the stuff up on top is going to be private, and only the stuff that's the slope or down is public. So that place offers you a little bit more opportunity for places to hunt.
Yeah. Man, you're good at this.
Thanks. Thanks, man.
So we're back on Steel Creek again for my second spot, and I just kind of happened upon this. There's a really nice tree line that you can see right in here, and I think that there are, if you zoom in here, there are some really great trails that all kind of converge right here in this spot, which I'm wondering if you see this little line right here, who knows what that is. K.C. said maybe it's rosebush or something like that they don't really want to go through. And then you can tell, I mean, I think personally that there's possibly a little bit of elevation drop right here too, which keeps them they're feeling more comfortable since the road is up here to the north. And so they're just kind of traveling just below that elevation line. It doesn't show it on here, but it's probably somewhere in between the intervals. Anyway, there's an obvious pinch right there. I think there's plenty of trees right there, and you know, if you're hunting on a good north wind day, which is a cold front around here, you sit in one of these trees right here on the bank, and you're pretty much foolproof, right? So
yeah, and a great place to come in with a boat and just not disturb any area.
Didn't even think about that. 100%.
Yeah, cool. That's a good looking spot too. You think those are hog trails, deer trails? Or
probably hog trails. I'm sure deer use them though,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things we battle here in Texas is you're going to see trails on the map are going to be hog trails a lot, but you just got to have some faith that if it makes sense for deer, that they're going to be there too.
Yeah, but if you want to shoot a pig, a really good opportunity there.
For sure.
So that spot looks really good, and I actually found a spot kind of like that too down here, just in a different creek. This is on Mesquite Creek, and not quite as much of a pinch as what you're talking about, but still a similar scenario where you've got lake behind it, and then an open field and a little line of timber right here. I think that there's probably a decent amount of bedding going on out here on this little hill or whatever you want to call it in the lake bed. And then of course they're going to gravitate towards this creek here, and same scenario where you have like a really specific tree that has multiple trails leading to it. And I always think there's something to that. Maybe that's an oak tree, or probably there's a real good chance that there's a scrape or two on this tree right here, and it's going to be just one of those hubs or one of those places that deer gravitate to. You know, it's on a tree line right here or a fence line. You're not going to have too many deer slipping down below you right here. Same scenario where it's one of those places where a north wind would really set up good, especially if you came in from a boat and just hopped up right here and got in one of these trees along this tree line.
I like it. I like those. I call them landmark trees. You know, it's just something. It's something that deer see from a long way, especially in like native grass situations, and they're just going to gravitate towards it. We see a lot in Kansas actually. So this last spot that I'm coming to here is is another pinch, and it's probably the best pinch that I've seen while map scouting on this place. I haven't spent probably as much time as KC has on this, but this is on Coreland out on a peninsula, and as you can see, there are some major trails and coming in through here. And basically, to me, that just says that this is a fence line where the best, you know, opening is right here, and this is where the fence is down or whatever. So
there's not supposed to be cattle on this.
There's
place,
not
right?
supposed to be, and who knows? There definitely could be. We've seen cattle on all kinds of public land in Texas. So whether they're supposed to be there or not doesn't necessarily matter. But I like the area because there's a lot of edge. You can see these old pastures and stuff, and these are probably old, like you said, cotton fields or something. And there's just tons of edge here. So I think what you can do, even if you you know, feel like those are cows using that area or something like that, is if you set up somewhere in here on a deer trail, find you a couple scrapes or something like that during the fall. The good thing about all this edge and this open country back in here is that, especially once the leaves fall, you're going to be able to see what edge the deer are actually using. You know what I mean? So if you're sitting up in the middle of this thing somewhere near the timber, you can see a lot of country from there with some of these bigger trees that are, you know, in this river bottom and lake bottom type country.
I like that one. You need to send me that,
Sure
that
enough.
dot. Another thing I like about that a lot too is there's so much edge that almost every wind direction you can find a spot there in that like 80-acre spot that you can hunt. You know, a tree line or something to feel like you're setting up where you aren't winding too many deer.
Yeah,
that's cool.
for sure.
So my last one is going to be one that you like.
Okay.
Tyler has an infatuation with island bucks.
Oh man.
He wants to kill a deer on an island, and this is a really big size island. In fact, let's see if we can get a size on this thing. So this island is somewhere around almost 100 acres, okay? That's a big old island. So there's definitely, as long as the lake level doesn't come up too much, there definitely can be deer out here all year long, not just seasonally. And of course, I think that you would want to go in here and scout this thing, maybe with your bow, and just find a place to set up. But if the lake's receiving any pressure at all, any hunting pressure, I think that you're going to end up having deer that even swim out here just because of some of our other experiences we've had elsewhere. And I just found this spot that has a bunch of trails all leading to this tree line along the lake shore, which almost to me screams bedding for whitetails, right? So maybe this is some midday bedding. Maybe you can set up right here in some of these trees right here for an evening hunt, or maybe you even you could come up out here in your boat early morning, set up and shoot a deer at 9:30 when he goes to his bed. But some really good trails there. Also definitely could be some pigs in there, which is always a nice little bonus. Nothing like throwing a 100-pound pig in the front of the boat and taking him home to smoke.
That's
so
right.
that's a good looking spot that's really kind of off the beaten path. You definitely have to really be trying to hunt that spot to get there. So I don't think pressure is going to be an issue. And in fact, I think a little trick you could do, even if there are guys out here hunting out of boats and stuff, you could put your big orange flag on your boat and just show people that you're up in there. And who wants to go hunt an island that some other dude is on? Right.
Sure, yeah. No, that's a good tip, man. I like it. Well, that's what we've got on Lake Whitney. It's a cool place. I've been there before, and KC definitely thought there was some really cool things to see there, and I did too. I didn't know about all the turkey action that was going on there. The tracks that we found, those are very cool. So it's going to be a place that we visit in the future, I'm sure, and I hope that you guys, if you go there, are finding some good stuff as well. So if you don't mind, subscribe below, like the video, comment, let us know what you think about what we've done. And remember, this is your element.
Living it.